and welcome to our sixth installment of this semester of Cinema Strategies, where we bring you film creators from all different sides of the production process. We've had uh, television comedy based creation people, we've had writers, directors, we've had combined writers, directors. We're going to have a script supervisor in the near future. But today we do have a writer director, and her first feature film is releasing May 11th called What Lies West. And I'm excited to bring her in. Here she is right now, Mrs. Jessica Ellis. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to get to talk with you.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to talk to someone with your experience in education. And yeah, so my first question for you today, Mrs. Ellis, is oh, I just threw it away on accident, but I was going to put it on screen, but I'm just going to tell you, what is the last film you've seen?
I watched Happily 2 nights ago, and I know the director a little bit, and it was a really cool, surrealistic, stylish, great. It's another feature film debut with a lot more money than I had, but yeah, that was a great movie.
Yeah, I saw somewhere on Twitter it said it was made by an intern or written by an intern or something. I
That
think that was
isn't
you, but
that's an old joke. The
okay.
director Ben David Grabinski used to have in his profile something about being an intern. So anytime people would yell at him on the internet, they would be like, "And you're just an intern," but it was a joke to begin
Okay.
with. So like it's been a many year long inside film Twitter joke that he's an intern.
Awesome. And it's like a dark comedy, right? That's what
Very
I got from
yeah,
the
a
trailer.
dark
Okay.
surrealistic comedy.
Awesome. I have to check that out. Joel McHale always gives me that kind of feel. Like he always plays like an asshole type of character, but like a likable asshole. So hopefully that he brings that energy into this role as well. And my next question for you, just to work us into our discussion of your film, is there one filmmaker that you look up to the most, and which of their films was first to like draw you into their type of filmmaking and speak to you?
Oh no, this is a terrible question because I'm so bad at this. I am not somebody that goes and watches every film a filmmaker makes generally. So it's tricky. There's a lot of yeah, I don't know. I love Ida Lupino. I think her career just groundbreaking as a female first an actress who then was like, no, I'm going to be in charge of this stuff, and really broke back into directing after women had been shut out of it in the 50s, and made some really incredible films about stuff nobody was talking about not wanting a pregnancy, about motherhood and all this stuff, and was kind of one of the originators of the female gaze in film. My favorite film by her, though, is her last film that she directed, which was a movie called The Trouble with Angels. It's a Haley Mills Disney movie. I think it was 66. And it's about kind of like a troublemaker girl who goes to a nunnery. But it's an incredibly rich story about these nuns and who they were. There's this whole segue where you find out one of them hid Jewish children in a basement during the war and was captured. And it's just about this kind of like, I don't care about anything girl, like gaining empathy for all these women who have chosen this life. It's a really gorgeous movie. And that was my introduction to her, and I love that film.
And what is her name? Because I'm not familiar with
Ida
her at all.
Lupino.
Okay. Thank you. I'll have to look her up if that's someone you really look up to. I'm sure she has great stuff. Uh, okay, great. Something I'll understand. I butchered her name typing it, but I'll dissect it later. And so, Santa Rosa is where you grew up. So, as you grew up there, was filmmaking on your radar? Uh, like as a thought of, as was it a passion that you thought you could maybe explore as a career when you grew up, or was it just uh, just something you liked as a hobby, or what was filmmaking to you when you were growing up in Santa Rosa?
I didn't really consider it as a career when I was young. My family loved movies, and my dad was the kind of guy who would just like go to the local video store and bring home 5 movies that no one had ever heard of. So I saw a lot of movies and I loved them. But I had an artistic family, so we were involved like in theater and music and all those sort of things. But filmmaking, I wandered gradually towards. I was an actor and I was a singer, and then I started writing plays, and then I went to college. My undergrad I did in playwriting. And while I was there, I took a screenwriting class and I really fell in love with the format. So I didn't transition into even trying to write film until I was about 24.
Wow. That's interesting just how you transitioned throughout your career. So you went to UCLA. You didn't go for filmmaking, or was it acting?
No, yeah, I was a theater major. I was in the playwriting program, which at the time was a very small program. Like you had like 2 classes in playwriting and then you were like, okay, I need to take a bunch of other stuff. So like I ended up taking like 5 classes in Balinese filmmaking. I don't know why there were so many classes in that, but I can talk about shadow puppetry for weeks.
I am familiar with that as well. Just a weird, I forget what the exact name is, because I took this weird music class my freshman year in college, and it touched upon all of those different like musical and theater styles in the East. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's a weird education, but you I don't know, everything you learn feeds into your work somehow, so it's all good.
Yeah, and yeah, I learned a lot of weird stuff that I hope to bring to my stuff as well. And like what, so you did theater at UCLA, and then you figured like after you graduated that you wanted to become a filmmaker. Is that what I'm taking? Okay, so and that's why you went to AFI following UCLA, right?
Yeah, because I had just sort of discovered this interest in my senior year at UCLA, and I didn't know anything about filmmaking. I didn't have any. I was living in LA, but I didn't have any idea how that worked. So like I entered a few contests, and I did pretty well early on, and then it was like, well, how do I do this? So grad school seemed like, okay, I need to actually learn how to be a filmmaker if I really want to pursue this. So that's where AFI came in.
And so what was that change from actor to like behind the camera? Was there any big catalyst for that, or is it just you just found that over time?
Uh, I mean, the initial catalyst for moving from acting into writing was a couple things. One, I had always written stories and stuff, so writing was a really natural way for me to express myself. 2, I didn't think I was attractive enough to make it as an actor. I really, I was looking at moving to LA, and I could have auditioned for UCLA as an actor, but it was like, nobody's gonna hire me in LA to act. Like, I'm not, I don't look like a model. That's not going to happen. So I kind of bailed on acting slightly and was like, well, let's go for something where my looks are less important. So that was, honestly, it was kind of just a career looking at like, how can I be involved in this realistically, that pushed me over.
Okay. So just taking a kind of self-reflective look at what is realistic, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's what all of us have to do sometime in college as well. And my next question is, do you consider yourself a writer who directs or a director who writes? And from what you've been saying, I'm assuming a writer who directs.
Very, 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 very much a writer who barely directs, a writer who is learning to direct.
Awesome. Okay, so have you been writing a lot during quarantine and like COVID?
For the first year, no. I totally froze. I work with a writing partner most of the time, and both of us were just like, it's just gone. Like so we spent all of last year rewriting existing projects that we needed to do anyway. So like we weren't not working, but it was so hard because it was like, how long is this going to go on? Like, what is the world going to look like when this is over? What is the point of writing for a future that we can't envision right now at all? But then, the election happened and the year turned over and things looked a little brighter and different this year. And since the beginning of this year, we've written 2 feature drafts. So it came back, but it definitely went into hibernation for a while.
Yeah, congrats to those two drafts so far. Are you happy with them? How they
Oh
are
no, they're
currently?
terrible.
They're
I
terrible.
mean, they're
Okay.
definitely like we wrote 2 drafts in 2 months so that they read like it. But we're really excited about the stories and the ideas and moving forward with them. And it was just so nice. You know, it was like going for a run after you haven't exercised in a while. Like you're creaky, but it feels really good to be back out there.
Yeah, yeah. You, it's kind of your stretch until you can run into the next second draft, I guess. And
Yeah.
yeah, awesome. And I'm assuming we have a question from one of your AFI friends here, but he's saying, who's your favorite writer friend from AFI, and what's your favorite story about them? That's
All
a
right, I'm going to embarrass him for asking that. That is my dearest friend, Anayat. We came up together, and I remember my favorite Anayat story. Who's going to kill me for this now? Is that he was going through a long stretch where he was really down and really lonely, and he and I used to go out. He would take me out for Middle Eastern food all the time. He's Iranian, and he took me out, and we got food, and we came back, and on the way back, he was like, "Do not read anything weird into this. But can I hold your hand for a minute? I'm so lonely." And I was like, yes. Oh, look at you, man, learning your feelings. Good for you. And I think of that story every time I think of Diet because he is an extremely funny, sarcastic character with a big marshmallow heart.
Was he just having the feelings there, or was
He
there
was just,
something?
I mean, we were like 30 at that point and like nothing was breaking anybody's way yet in Hollywood. And I think he was just at a low moment and needed a friend.
That's a great story, Naya. Thank you for sharing that with us and starting that conversation. And yeah, thank you for listening to this conversation so far. So you're at AFI. You learn. I'm assuming you learn a lot there because that's one of the kind of apexes of education in film in North America. And we had one other female filmmaker go there who was on this show, and she really said that it helped her out a lot, but it's very expensive. So, do you think like AFI and everything you learned there, your relationships with Anaya, was that worth the high cost that you paid?
This is a difficult question. You gain a lot in a program like that. What you primarily gain are connections and time to work on your craft. But AFI as a program, at least when I went there, which is now, I graduated in 2010. So possibly everything is different, but is a very director focused school to the detriment of the writing program. So in that, like, you make all these shorts together every year and the directors pretty much after the first time you do it can throw writers scripts out entirely and write their own, and there's no oversight to protect the writer's work at all. And if you can go there as a director, it might be more worth it. It has an amazing cinematography department, amazing editing and production design, but particularly as writers, I wouldn't recommend it unless you can get a full scholarship or you have the money existing. But really, the primary thing you get is connections. I met my entire team essentially for What Lies West there. We worked together, and I met, I had for, I think, 6 or 7 years following graduation, a writers group of alumni from my year that every script we wrote, we put in front of each other, and we were each other's kind of first line of defense on that. So I think you can get connections and you can become a better writer without formalized education. And when you're talking about $200,000 of compounding interest in loans, it's worth it to look at many other options.
Yeah, I had to ask that because I saw your tweet that you just sent out like an hour before this, and it really went along with kind of the college age student and what they might be looking at after their undergraduate. So, yeah,
Yeah,
thank
I
you
mean,
for
I'm going
being
to be
blunt.
paying off those loans until God help me, Elizabeth Warren manages to get them forgiven, or doomsday comes. Like at this point, I would have to sell 2 Marvel movies to pay them off just because of the interest. And it now takes longer and longer to establish yourself to a place where you're really making money in Hollywood, and it's very shaky for a long time. So it's a huge risk.
Yeah, and like you said, you get those great connections, but there is a give and take.
Yeah.
So, what was your mindset after you graduated from AFI? As a writer, what was your next course of action? Was it to just keep writing and like the Hollywood dream is to write it, get someone to direct or direct it yourself, but did you have a what was your plan exactly?
Well, I was lucky enough to pick up a manager right before I graduated. It was just we had a panel of managers and agents come to the school. There was one I liked talking to, so I just went up to him afterwards and we chatted, and he ended up repping me. So immediately it was about taking the scripts I had written at school and packaging them and sending them out and trying to find work that way. Ultimately, nothing happened, like I had meetings but like, it was just making sure my material was ready to go out and targeted at who I wanted to go out. But unfortunately, I was pretty young and new at this and picked somebody who wasn't really able to help and wasn't really able to deliver on what they said. So you can waste a lot of time believing that somebody is there to get you to the next level and not doing your research on whether they actually can or not. And that's what I did for a few years, was waste a lot of time.
Didn't that turn into a bit of a horror story where they like left the state and
He
didn't really
did.
make contact with you?
Yeah, he was my manager till 2014 or 2015. And I was in the middle of pitching a series. Like, he was setting up meetings. I was going out, I was pitching networks or I was pitching companies. And suddenly he stopped returning my emails, and like meetings that I were set up with, I couldn't get in contact with him. And it was like he disappeared off the face of the earth. And eventually, after about 6 months, I tracked down another of his clients who had one night gotten I think, inebriated phone call from him, and he had moved out of state and quit the job and not told any of his clients. And it was such a reckoning, because it was like, my God, I trusted my professional future to this guy for the last 5 years. And I really liked him. He was kind. He gave great notes. He was responsive. But yeah, that he just vanished. And suddenly I was back completely at square one, because I didn't have any of his contacts. I couldn't go back to any of the companies that I had just pitched to, because I didn't have their information, and I was starting all over again. So
That's insane. I never heard anything like that. So
it happens. It happens a lot.
Thank you for letting me know for the future and everyone else listening. And yeah, like you said, so mostly when you graduate AFI, you were working with this manager to kind of package yourself and sell it to networks or production companies. Was it going pretty steady for you, or how was that going?
Meetings were going steadily. But progress is so slow. It's often hard. Like, I had a TV project picked up for development, and it was like, okay, now we have to package it. And it's like, every person it sends out to, it takes like 2 months to figure out if they say yes or no. So before you know it, like a year and a half has gone by and there's been no movement. I got another feature development company hired me to work on an idea with them, and I would go every couple weeks and meet with them with a new draft of an outline, and they'd give me notes. But they were really indecisive about what they wanted, and they kept changing genres. And so over the course of a year, where I was not being paid, like, I wrote 30 or 40 drafts of an outline. And it's so difficult when you're starting out, because you want work so bad, and you're told like, well, this is going to lead to payment down the road. And you want to, especially as a woman, like, you don't want to get a reputation as somebody that's tough to work with, or that rejects opportunity or anything like that. And it's just really easy to get taken advantage of.
Yeah. And I can't imagine, because I haven't been in that position yet at all, but that, like you said, there's a lot of pressure. You really want to succeed, and you don't want to be called difficult to work with and labeled that and kind of blacklisted. So that can be scary. So I'm not looking forward to that whenever that happens.
Well, just do your research and ask specific questions.
As a writer director, do you ever find yourself fighting kind of with, like, in the stuff that you have created, fighting with what you intended as a writer, Mrs. Ellis, like, and what can actually happen when you're in that director role?
I actually find it's a pretty natural flow between the two. And it's probably actually easier to do it with your own script than with somebody else's, because you know exactly what your intent was. For me, on set, if a line isn't working, it's easier for me to go, well, I know what that line is supposed to mean. So here's some words that are easier for you to say, or that come out of your mouth easier, that will get across the same effect. Where if it's somebody else's script, like, I know what the scene is saying, but I may not know exactly what that writer was thinking when they wrote that line. So the specificity of that, my whole philosophy, that's annoying. My whole thing is like, don't be too rigid. Like, you have to get the work done. So if that means throwing out a beloved line to make it easier for somebody to say, like, then do it. Like, that's what you're going to have to do anyway. There's no reason to be mad at either side of yourself about that process.
Be flexible. So,
yeah.
Was What Lies West a concept that you always had in mind, or just did it happen in that drive-through at Amy's? Like, did that just pop, like, right
Yeah,
there?
it literally was an idea I came up with very vaguely in the moment of saying, I want to make a movie this summer. I'm sick of not getting anything made. And it was influenced by a few things. I knew I wanted to shoot in Sonoma County, which is my hometown. And I knew I wanted to take advantage of the landscape up there, which I love very much. And when you grow up in a really beautiful natural area, you have an innate understanding of how that landscape affects you. You see yourself as part of it. And so it made a lot of sense to me to do a story about growth and about capacity that really involved the outdoors. And from there, the dominoes just fell. Well, who goes through growth? I wanted to talk about women, particularly leaving adolescence and leaving childhood. And then it became like, and summer stories with young people are usually about growth because you're out of the confined school, peer pressure environment, and you can be more yourself and explore more of yourself. So it just sort of evolved very quickly, out of giving myself one parameter, which is I want to do this summer and here.
Awesome. Yeah, because I really like when writers and directors give themselves like some type of requirement in their work, like, and you wanted to create it in your hometown this summer, and that was kind of your requirement. Uh, and you're the sole writer on What Lies West. And why is that? Because like you said before, you have a really close writing partner. Was it just because you had this idea and you had a short amount of time, or? Well,
Yeah, that was pretty much it, because it was such a personal story, and my writing partner Nick is not from the same area. It was such a fast personal decision, and he was there every step of the way. He read every single draft, and every single time I changed a word, he was always working very closely with me. But it was just like, yeah, this one is kind of coming really from inside me. And he and we've worked together about 6 years now, and we've always given each other room to go and write our own stuff. If there's an idea that the other person is just like, I don't see me in this one, that's not a problem with the two of us. We're happy to give each other space and maybe, advise each other and just serve as the non-writing half of the brain in that situation.
yeah, that's a really cool relationship to have with someone else that close. And was it just because it was such a personal story? Is that why you felt like you had to direct it? Because, like you said, you have connections at really close at AFI, and people that could direct it. And your partner, he's a cinematographer, DP, and he could maybe step into the role as a director, but you directed it. So why was your decision to have yourself direct this?
There were a couple parts. One was I had directed a couple of plays in college, and I'd always wanted to explore that more, but it just hadn't really gotten to. The other thing was that our other parameter was that I wanted to cast the actresses that I knew I wanted to cast in the two lead roles, neither of whom had done film before. They're both theater actors. They are both my nieces. And so I've known them since birth. And I thought, this is a little bit of a cheat sheet for me and for them, because I know them, I've babysat them, I'm close to them. Like, I know how to motivate them. I know how to talk to them to get through to them. And that will make working with the actor part of directing easier for me. And it will also make them feel safer and more vulnerable that they've got somebody in charge and directing them that they know and that they feel safe with. So I thought it would be the biggest benefit to the, to the project that I could give it, is to just do it myself and create that kind of vulnerable space because there were existing relationships.
So yeah, I'm sure that really made production go smoother with everyone. Like you knew the production, the crew really well. You knew the actresses since birth, so I'm sure everything just went smoother with that decision.
It was a stunningly smooth. I mean, set was stunningly smooth. There were some complications out of our hands, but yeah, it was a really beautiful crew. And one of my favorite things is that crew that we had, which our DP put together, Sean Carroll, was they all call each other now. They're each other's first call when a job comes up. They love working together. And that in some respects started on our set. And I love that we created an atmosphere that made people want to connect and want to stay together. That was really important to me.
Great. And did you always have an ambition to shoot this, or like a film, or was it this film that was going to be set in your home county? Like, was it always intended to be this one, or like when you're in like AFI, did you say like someday I want to shoot a film like at my home county?
I wanted to shoot a film there. Okay. It's a really popular shooting location. Hitchcock shot there all the time. Coppola shot there. Joe Dante made The Explorers there, which is one of my favorite movies. But as a local, I was always frustrated because the movies do not look like the county. They don't capture it. And it used to drive me crazy. So I wanted to be one of the first people to have that insider perspective and be like, I know where to shoot this. I know exactly where to go. I know exactly how I want it to look and what will be in bloom at this time of year. And I thought that would help on a first feature just because that makes it more personal and more intimate. And I think that adds a layer of meaning to it.
Do you feel like you accomplished that, like catching the feel of your home county that you grew up in?
Yeah, I do. I think it was nice. We did like a big friends and family screening in the county before we started doing festivals. And it was so great to watch locals be like, oh, I know where that trail is and I know where that beach is. And I've been there. I think it made the world of the movie feel real to the people that watched it. And that was really special.
Yeah, that's awesome because no film's ever been shot in my hometown. I doubt they will unless I do it. So,
well, do it.
Possibly, like anything could happen in the next few years. Let's see, but like when you were writing the film, like I'm assuming you already had the location scouted in your mind, right?
For the most part, yeah.
And did any of those locations, like when you were going to actually scout them out and to like get permission to shoot there, did any of those kind of fall through, or did mostly all of them stick to what you were thinking?
Yeah, a few of them did fall through because of money, just cost. There was a scene that was originally supposed to happen in one specific town square that we moved to a different town just because it was like $5,000 a day and traffic control was really hard and logistical things. And a lot of them were like, I know I want to shoot this in this state park, but like, where? And literally location scouting was us just like, well, let's walk on this trail for a while and see if we like how it looks. So most of it worked. And then we shot our interiors in LA. So that was much more of a location intensive process because that meant going to houses and going to places and trying to find something that looked like Sonoma County, but 400 miles away.
Yeah, I could see like the kind of difficulty to acquiring these locations. Like, you had a very short turnaround from writing it to actual production, right?
Yeah, it was less. I think it was just about 3 months from deciding to do it till production. Wow. Maybe 4 months.
That's crazy, in my mind, at least for
it's absolutely crazy. Yeah. It is. I don't recommend doing that. It is 100% insane.
And did you find it easier to gain permission to use these locations since you were like a native and you were born like in this location? Did that help you out?
Yes. I wrote a few very heartfelt letters to park rangers. And a lot of it, actually, we were able to take advantage of, since it's such a rural, like parts of it are very rural, we were able to talk to people who owned land and just be like, can we shoot literally in your backyard, which is 20 acres of oak forest? And they would be like, yeah, sure. So, it's a very friendly city to film in, but definitely did I use every ounce of my hometown connection to do it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. There are many soppy letters out there.
Straight handwritten letters, or
yeah
okay,
it's just really like earnest things about growing up in the parks and what they meant to me and how important the park, and they were honest. I mean, it's true, but it's also like begging very politely.
So you were a frequent guest of these state parks that were in Sonoma?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. That's the activity out there, is you go walk, you go to the parks, you go hiking, or you go swimming, or you rent a boat. And like, that's pretty much the, like, you can go to movie theaters, but there's not like nightlife. There's not, it's not a tiny area, but it's very, very connected to the outdoors at all times. So the idea of two girls spending their summer hiking around parks is just life up there.
Yeah. And for me, at least, like, I've only seen the trailers, like I've told you, but like, I'm an Eagle Scout, so just seeing them backpacking, do all that kind of brings back a lot of memories to me. And all, like, camping out under the stars, that was really cool to see. How did you meet your producers? I'm assuming it was just through AFI, like Sean Carroll and Jennifer S. Milliman.
Yeah, Sean and I are married, so that helped. I had an in. Yeah. Jen and Sean made their thesis film together at AFI. So they had worked together as a DP and producer already, and were really good friends. And we knew we wanted to just bring on somebody that was really experienced. Jen is a really experienced AD. She's done a ton of film, and she was really excited to jump on a project with us. So it was really just a combination of friendship, and we'd worked together, and it was kismet.
Yeah, really easy communication between you three, because yeah, you've known yourself for a few years at this point.
Yeah.
And for crowdfunding and fundraising, one site that you use was Seed and Spark. I'm not familiar with it. Like, there's different ones that I've heard of, like, that filmmakers use, but why did you decide to use this specific crowdfunding site?
It seemed, I mean, we looked at Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all the big ones. What we liked about Seed and Spark was that they have a very intensive feedback process where you submit your project, and then they actually spend time going over it and telling you, like, here's some areas that you could improve this. Here's where you're going to run into trouble with the perks that you've talked about. Like, and here's what we suggest. And because we'd never done it before, that kind of supportive environment was really helpful. It's also a woman-run company and is really, really friendly to female filmmakers. We thought it was a way to make us stand out a little bit from endless Kickstarted films, to go with a really different platform.
And what was the whole process of fundraising this? Because, like you said, you had about 3 months from writing it to actual production. So what was the whole process of fundraising? And did you have like a certain number in mind while in pre-production that you said, we have to hit this to shoot my vision?
We did 2 rounds of fundraising. The first round, I think we did 25,000. And then the second round, there was a competition going on through Seed and Spark called Hometown Heroes that was specifically for projects being shot in people's hometowns for outside of LA movies. And so we wanted to take advantage of that. So we did that. But the process was basically, we kind of considered what our assets were. And for us, our main asset was, I had a pretty substantial following on Twitter, just personally. So we knew we needed something that was social media geared so we could activate those people. And it was we just wrote the campaign. We shot a video. We came up with as many perks as we could that were not physical, because something that can kill you is having to send out 7,000 t-shirts. Like, it's really, when you're making a movie, you don't want to think about that. So as many things that we could do that were intangible, or stuff like a digital download of the movie, or something like that would be virtual and not require shipping and all sorts of stuff. So we took that into consideration. And then it was just me every single day of the campaign, on Twitter, on Facebook, rallying interest in any way I could. We made stupid little videos like 3 times a week to release just to get people to laugh. We did tiny little promotions like a giveaway of a mug, like a What Lies Less mug, and then I just spent a lot of time not directly being like, give me money, but being like, here is what the project is about, doing threads about like female friendship and overcoming anxiety. And here's what you need to know about Sonoma County and all these things that could kind of draw different communities to us as they got retweeted on Twitter. And it was just exhausting. I mean, it is a full-time dancing for an organ grinder job. It's really difficult and a lot. And then we did it all over again.
And you said that went on for about a month, all that.
I think it was 30 days.
And for you, like, if you didn't have that Twitter following, that Twitter, like those subscribers, whatever they're called, like, how do you think this would have happened? Like, how would you have gotten the funding if that wasn't a factor?
I mean, there were kind of 2 options. We were also using small investments and savings, our savings. So we had some money, but we wanted to see how big we could make the production. It was sort of a thing of like, we know we have enough to shoot the very bare bones basics. Like, how nice of a time can we have and how many shooting days can we add to our sort of basics? So I think it would have gotten done. I mean, our initial budget when we first came up with the project, I think was $40,000. And we were like, we can do it for this, but it would be nicer if we got more. We also had at one point a producer who was going to come in with additional money. So suddenly we were thinking like, oh, we're going to have $120,000. Like, this is a real movie now. Let's expand. Let's add more locations. Let's do some rewriting in the script. Let's make it bigger. And then very shortly before production, they pulled out. And now it was like, well, now we've budgeted this thing to be this large. And we just lost the, $25,000. How do we get it back? And that's what inspired the second round of crowdfunding after we shot our first segment, was like, well, now it's this size, so we got to find that money somehow. There is a point where you can go too far and now you're broke, but we got near it, but not over it.
Yeah, it sucks to think of. Like, how many weeks were you out? Like, you were 2 weeks or 3 weeks out?
I think we were already up in Sonoma County maybe 10 or 12 days before shooting.
Wow. That's insane to think of. Just that's probably like 15 or 20, probably a lot larger of your budget, percent of your budget. And I just, poof, it's gone. So
it was a shock. It was definitely a shock. And, it's the kind of conversation where you're like, well, do we take out a credit card? Do we beg some relative to loan us money? Like, what do we do? But, again, this is why be flexible is important. It's because stuff like that's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's nobody's fault. It's not that the producer was evil. It just something came up and they couldn't invest anymore. And you just have to be prepared to say, well, I'm going to get it done anyway. So we're going to find the money or we're going to make it cheaper. That's it. Yeah. It's still getting done.
And I wish I could go back in time and somehow be a part of that crowdfunding, because that mug, like you said, that was a really cool mug.
It was a very cool mug. We put a lot of thought into the design. Like and it helps you brand your movie, right? When you're saying like, this is the font we use, this, it's like we did like little cool tin mugs with like a pine tree on them and stuff. Like we're talking about camping. We're talking about being out there. We wanted to create an awareness of the brand of the film with everything that we did. And I think that helped because it really establishes it as a personality. And then you're creating fans. This was 4 years ago. I have people who crowdfunded for us, who gave us money, who are now 4 years later still so excited to finally get to see the movie because of that, because we gave them a specific thing to love.
Yeah, and it's really, like, it's correct to like the theme of the film as well, like camping and outdoors, because that tin mug is something that I would see like while I was at like summer camp. That's something like an older scoutmaster might have, like something lightweight. So that's why I really liked it. And it looks good. It's correct and it's very unique, because I can't buy it right now unless someone sells them for exponentially larger on eBay, probably.
I think we still have some. I can send you one.
Oh my gosh. I'd love to, I don't know, donate some money and somehow get that. That'd be awesome. Yeah. So next question I have for you. We've talked about it a little bit. They're your two nieces, the two leads of the film. But did you ever were they always intended in your brain when you wrote the film that maybe I could do casting, or was it always these two actresses you had in mind?
Uh, I involved them day one. I thought it would be really fun to make a movie with both of them. They're both really fascinating people and they're very different. And they have, they've known each other their whole lives and they have very interesting chemistry together because they approach life completely differently. And I was like, well, I'm going to steal that. There was some consideration about like, do we want to go SAG? Do we want to try to send this out to stars and make it a whole thing? But we just didn't think first time director, first time writer, first time team, essentially, like it seemed like that was going to slow us down by years and maybe be totally fruitless. And here we had these extremely interesting people in front of us. So they literally, like, I came up with the idea and called the two of them that night and was like, would you like to be in a movie? And I don't think either of them realized I meant as the lead, but they played along. They indulged their aunt.
Yeah, I have to say, as the aunt of the two leads and the two leads themselves, I think they did a really great job because just seeing the trailer alone, I thought they were two strangers. So that ability for them just to act like they don't know each other when they knew each other mostly their whole lives was really great.
Yeah, I mean, I knew they were both going to be fascinating on camera. And when you have a resource like that, you can already tell like nobody looks like these girls in Hollywood right now and they are going to be presences on the screen. Why go chasing anybody else? You've got something unique and you want your film to be about you and what you think is cool. So use the thing that's cool.
And they're both from Sonoma County.
Originally, yeah.
Okay.
The Chloe, the younger actor, she still lives there. The older actor has moved to New York because she's pursuing Broadway. She's a musical theater background, so she's been having a fun year there in the pandemic. But yeah, they both grew up in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, so same thing with the film. They're born and bred where the film is made, where you shot most of the film. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
If you
I was going to say, and that was another thing was that I thought would make it safer and easier for them on their first movie was that they could go home every night. They could go to their family. They would be not in some city they'd never been to before. All that stuff that can add to stress.
yeah, yeah. I've That's definitely a factor to think of when shooting your first film. Is there any particular reason you maintained like the actor's actual name with their character? Was it just easier altogether, like directing them that way? Or...
It was easier. They also both have kind of interesting, unusual names. So it was like, well, these are, I mean, what am I going to do? Call them Jane and Sandy? Like they already have cool names, but it was easier in remembering what their personalities are and what I wanted to bring from them into the roles to just think of them as, and then very completely coincidentally, we cast the character of Chloe's mother, whose name in the script was Anne. Anne is an actress named Anna, and that was totally by accident. So that part wasn't intentional, but those two, yeah, I decided just to stick with the names.
Yeah, I guess that happens very infrequently, and maybe more frequently in lower budget stuff. But yeah, that was cool to see when researching more about them. And like as you can see behind me, one of my favorite things about film is posters. And I like talking about branding. I really like the posters that you had created for What Lies West. And one of them to me, that's the profile picture for the Twitter of the film. It looks like a like high school novel like cover in a way. It was that intentional at all? Because there's like three posters that I'm aware of that I've seen, and each is kind of different in art style. But I really like that one because it's very,
I'm now trying to
very
remember
odd.
which one that is. Is that like the green and orangey kind of one?
It's not there's like one pastel one I'd like to say, and there's
Yeah.
one that has realistic, like that has some imagery of the actual actors, and then there's one that I haven't seen a main poster of, but I don't know, you would know more than me,
Yeah.
but
That one was That one I created in Photoshop just from a photograph of a trail in Sonoma County. And like I posterized it and did all sorts of messed with it forever to get it. You know, I did want an illustrated look initially. I wanted something that felt a little bit old fashioned. We knew we were going to shoot it with kind of a 90s independent look. So I wanted something that felt nostalgic in a way, not nostalgic for a particular era, but just like something that would make you think of youth, something that would make you think of summer and reading and, you know, things that you did when you were 12 or 13. So that was that one. The illustrated poster we used for festivals, and the woman who did that, Shamisa Kellogg, also made the maps for the film. There's a couple of maps that are really important, hand-drawn ones. And she's such an incredible artist. And ironically, I had seen her work and I was like, why does everything she draw look like Sonoma County? And she had grown up there and doesn't live there anymore. But I found that out and was totally blown away by it. So she did a beautiful illustrated poster that we used in festivals. And then for the release, we have a more, you know, filmy, like girls hiking through the woods, realistic image that we love. We love a lot. We think it conveys a lot of the same feelings, but it's something you're going to click on Amazon probably more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it because it's just not the Mount Rushmore that I hate. Just two faces.
I fought very hard against face posters.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Thank you. I appreciate
and you know, with non-name actors, like you're going to look at that and be like, okay, those are two people. Like it didn't make any sense to me to do that.
Yeah, and it's different enough that it's unique to what you created, and I really like that you put some attention into like the artwork. I really like that, and it's like some of them I would think of hanging up. They're really cool. So congrats on your posters.
Thanks.
It's underlooked in a lot of at least major films nowadays. I'm sure indies like a more artistic feel.
Well, you have, when you're making bigger films, you have so many other people with creative input on what you're doing. But the great thing about making a really low budget indie where you're wearing so many, you're the production designer, you're the poster designer, you're the director, is that every choice you make makes the film more its own thing. It's another chance to understand your own material better. And that's a gift.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, the 90s feel, the kind of book cover, like I said, that corresponds to what you're trying to create. So that's awesome. And one other question that I have is, what was the size of the total crew of the production?
Well, since we shot in segments, it went up and down. There were people swapping in for roles because we couldn't get everybody for everything. I think on a daily basis, it was something like 16 to 17 people. But that's everybody. That includes the cast.
Okay.
So it was maybe a five or six person camera team, a sound person, a production manager, some PAs, an AD, a script supervisor, and one woman doing costume. And in the LA section, we had two women doing costume and hair and makeup. And in the Sonoma section, we had one woman doing all of it. So it was a tiny, tiny crew of amazing, inexhaustible people who are, I think, made by Disney because they were never in a bad mood for 1 second of one day.
And that's the crew that you want. And you enabled that kind of atmosphere. So congrats on you for having that constant, like, positive energy throughout the set. Because without that, how many days did you film about? I'm sorry.
We filmed 17 days.
17 days. Those could be a really crappy 17 days if you didn't keep that atmosphere. So congrats on that.
Thanks.
Even on like student projects I worked on, that like they weren't nearly 17 days, probably like 8 days, but they can feel like 8 weeks if like you don't keep that energy up. So congrats.
Well, and that was the thing I was so concerned about because I had been on set with directors who were absolute monsters and set the tone by being arrogant and entitled and awful to their collaborators. And I was so afraid that would just happen, that's who I would be on set. So it was an incredible relief to get to set the first day and be like, hey, I'm with my friends. Like I'm with these people who I love and who are so talented. Like we're going to have a good day. We're going to have fun. And realizing that you have the responsibility to set the tone and you can make it whatever you want is so freeing. You don't have to be that person.
Yeah, if you ever have the chance to hopefully create like a Blu-ray of your film, I like definitely add those like behind the scenes and all the stuff that you had on YouTube to that, because you can really feel that energy and like, and hopefully when I see the film, you can like feel the energy in the production as well, because yeah, it works, the feeling of just having a great time on set. Uh, and something else that was important to you that I could tell in your website was having like a self mandate of having like 80% or more being of women, like crew cast. So did you find it difficult at all to like reach that mandate?
In some categories, yeah, it was incredibly hard to find a women in sound. I think we put up a post for an on-set sound person in LA when we were going to shoot down here, and we said like, this is a female heavy project. We would love female applicants. We got 26 male applicants and one woman, and that just shows you what the field is like, and that breaks my heart, because there's no reason that women can't be in sound. That's ridiculous. There's no biological advantage of any kind. They don't hear better. Like, and I just wanted to find as many women who wanted feature experience. And my husband, who's a DP, had found consistently that the women he worked with on camera crews were 10 times better than the men. Like, because they had to work harder to get hired at all, and they rarely got a chance to move up the way that men did. So we wanted to find all those great women in every role we could, and just invite them into our little world. And it was amazing. I mean, the guys we had were also incredible. We had some amazing men on the team, but yeah, it was beautiful seeing a set that was populated mostly by women.
Yeah, that's odd for me too, because like I've worked on a lot of student projects, and one role that I don't see, like at least on like short films, is like a women's like sound mixer. Like in TV, I've done TV stuff at Kent State, and I've worked with a good amount of TV sound mixers, like sound people, but not really in film, which is kind of odd to think of.
Yeah, there's boy clubs everywhere, unfortunately, and women get stopped so early from even thinking it's something they can do. So it's great to find the women that are like, no, screw that, I'm going to do it, and work with them. They're always fun.
Yeah, like you said, like because it's harder for them, they sometimes are even better than the guys as well. So, and one like really crappy thing about the production of What Lies West is the hiatus that you guys had to take in the middle. So, was it like how many days were you into production when you had to take this
Well,
hiatus?
we had always planned to have a brief one because we knew we were going to shoot interiors in LA. So originally the schedule was we were going to shoot in August in Sonoma County and then shoot in October in LA. And then in September, I had to have emergency open heart surgery. They found a congenital defect, and I was on the operating table for 12 hours the next day. And there's a 6-month recovery period. So October was not going to happen as much as I wanted. And then also in October, the wildfires of 2017 hit Sonoma County and burned down a significant part of some of the parks we were using. So we needed to give that some time to come back to life. Things were shut for safety for months up there. And we were planning to go back and do a little more shooting up there. So October became February, and then our reshoots in Sonoma were not until the next, I think, July.
Yeah,
So it was not
crazy.
fun. It was an incredible thing. But what's amazing about it is we were making a movie about stretching your capacity. And I got to do that in the midst of the movie in so many directions, and I feel so lucky, honestly, that I was afforded an experience that I'm a very anxious person by nature, and I worry about my ability to cope and survive with things. And directing a movie around having your chest sawn open is a hard thing, and I was very proud of myself. So I don't know, that was it. It was awful, but it was a gift in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's some things that you can't predict for, like your heart surgery, fires. Did you have to reshoot any scenes that were shot before the hiatus, after, because of the fires in Sonoma County during 2017.
We did have a couple of reshoots because just because of location issues, not so much because of the fires. The fires, mostly we were able to like shoot around the damage. There were some where literally everything behind us was charcoal and we could shoot in one direction. And we reshot a couple of scenes because of that. We had one scene that we had to reshoot because we were shooting in a regional park, and while we were allowed to shoot there, we didn't have permission to tell anyone else using the park what to do. And the shoot was supposed to be on a dock, and there was a family fishing on the dock, and we couldn't ask them to leave. So initially the scene was shot in a parking lot, and we were all like, yeah, we're going to redo that one. That sucked. That looks ridiculous. So we did that. And then the rest of our reshoots were a segment of the film that involves another actor who we had cast someone for, but got very sick right before shooting, and we had to recast. And so we ended up pushing that into the reshoot section and shooting all of that while we were up there reshooting stuff anyway.
Wow. Just problem solving.
Yeah, it's what's fun. I mean, if you don't find that fun, don't be an independent filmmaker, because that's what the job is every day you go up and chaos attacks. And if you find it enjoyable to be like, all right, we're going to do this now. Now we're going to do this. Like, let's try. We still have to make our page count. We're going to do this today. Like, if that's fun for you, you're going to love filmmaking. If you hate that, it's going to suck.
I messed up for a second, but I'm back. And yeah, for like all the stuff that I've worked on, there's always been a kind of fear that, I don't know, like, it might not get released. Just somewhere it might get stuck in the like gears and might break. And did you ever feel like during that hiatus that it might not get finished just because of all the obstacles that you were facing?
Not during the hiatus, especially once the surgery happened, because it was kind of my like, it was my daily thing of just like, I have to survive this because I am going to shoot this goddamn movie. But post took a very long time and involved so many areas that none of us had worked in before, like music rights and all this stuff. It just felt like, is this ever going to get done? But you also move the goalposts on yourself so much in a film like this. Because originally it was just like, let's make something. Our friends and families can see it. Maybe we can put it in a few festivals. It's going to be tiny. It's not going to be huge. And then it became like, well, now we have a budget. Now it could be bigger. And you move your goals. And the bad thing about that is that when you achieve the things you already set out to achieve, they don't feel as good because now you're looking further to the horizon. So, you'll definitely have points where you're like, it's never going to get done. But if you're anywhere in the process, you've already achieved something, Yeah. It's hard to keep that balance, though. It's really hard.
So what were those issues during like post-production? Like you said, music, like I assume in like an indie film that you get mostly like you pay someone to compose like brand new music so you don't have to worry about rights. So What was your issue there?
Well, it was a couple of things. We didn't pay a composer. We used a combination of music aggregating sites, which are sites that you can pay like a specific per project fee for and then have access to a huge database of music that you can use however you want. And then we found one musical artist, a guitarist named Andy McKee, who I loved, who agreed to let us use some of his songs and then base the rest of the music around that. And then we had a few specific more like pop songs. And those, for our festival run, we were able to get licenses for bigger bands because they'll give you festival licenses for not that much money. So like we had a Lumineers song and we had a song by the XX, and like these are pretty big songs. But having no experience and not having a music supervisor, we didn't understand how big the jump in cost was from a festival license to distribution rights on music. And I think when they heard our budget, they just kind of were like, we're not talking to these people. They don't know what they're talking about, which was true, which was fair of them. And so we went months and months and months going, why haven't we heard back from these people? We're emailing them. We're talking to them. Why won't they even tell us how much it costs so we can figure it out? And finally, I had a conversation with a music supervisor who was like, yeah, it's going to be like $15,000 a song. Do you realize that? And I was like, okay, so back to the music aggregator. We're just going to replace that with songs we already have a license to use then. And we ended up pulling everything out that was a bigger like name band and switching to other artists. and it's hard because you get attached to the cut, you know, and it was what we had screened in festivals. But, yeah, that you're never, if you're a first time director going into a feature and you don't have studio money behind you, you're going to go into some areas where you have no experience, and they're hard, but you just can't ever quit or it won't get done.
So festival license are like, those are much lower than
festival. Yeah, they were like, I would say, I think like one was like $750 for a year, and you can put in as many festivals as you want. And so you think like, okay, well then the distribution one's maybe going to be 3,000, something like, something reasonable. When you hear 15,000, you're like, well, that's a quarter of the budget of the entire movie. So no, we're not doing that four times. Yeah. And they have a right to charge that much. It's not their fault. That was totally on us for having no knowledge in that area.
So if you could go back, do you wish you would have hired like a music supervisor, like you said, somehow? Or is that even a possibility on such a small budget like you had?
I mean, I don't know if we would have had the money to do it. I don't know where we would have pulled the money from to do that at all. But I'm happy with the music that we ended up with. I wish we had gotten advice earlier in the process from somebody for less money who could have told us like, no, just give up on this. You're on a wild goose chase, basically. But music supervisors are incredible at what they do. And I'm not the world's most cultured music person, but with this, I knew exactly what style of music I wanted. So it was a little easier to find. I was going specifically for like solo acoustic fingerstyle guitar stuff. And there's only so much of that you can find. So that I trusted myself to find, but hopefully project 2, I can have professionals do these things instead of me figuring them out.
But it's even better now, like even on your second project, you have this knowledge to carry over, so you're not just starting from square one.
Yes, I will make different mistakes next time.
Yeah, that's the best part. And you have this really cool song that's named after the film in, I don't know, I heard it on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's in the film, but I assume that it is. So
it is.
That's really cool that you got a song called What Lies West.
Yeah,
What Lies West. So
our friends, we have friends who are really popular musicians in Pittsburgh, where my husband is from, Chet Vincent and Molly Alphabet. And we asked them, like, we'd love like a theme song that we could put in the credits that could maybe be in the movie. Like, could you guys think of anything? And they asked us some questions about the movie and what it was about. And literally like 24 hours later, they were like, okay, listen to this. And they played us this song. And we were like, how did you do that fast? How did you do that? And so, we just like got them some recording studio time, and they very kindly recorded it for us. That was amazing. Every time someone signed on to lend their creativity to this project was the best moment of my life, because people have limited time and effort, and it's just overwhelming when somebody's like, yeah, I'll give you some of my talent. That's such an honor.
Yeah, definitely. Just sharing their gifts with you, and sharing their time. And I hate to say it, but I'm from Pittsburgh and I live in Pittsburgh right now, and I'm not familiar with these people. So
they're amazing. They're married, but they have separate bands, and they're both incredible.
Yeah, I hate that you said that they're really popular in Pittsburgh, but I've never heard of them. So I have to look them up now.
You do.
And my next question for you, Jessica, is what was the idea of going to distribute this film? Because the way I've been taught is that before you even after you write the script, you should think about how you're going to distribute this, like the best way that's feasible for you on the budget that you have. So as a very gifted and knowledgeable filmmaker, writer, I'm sure you had some idea of what you were going to do, right?
Yes. Absolutely. We knew every step. No, we had no idea. I mean, we knew what the options were. Although interestingly, in production, back when we started, there were starting to be all these aggregate distributors that you could go to that sounded really cool. And it was like, well, that's a good option. And they all fell apart by the time we were ready to distribute. The hope was always, in talking to other friends, there were several different strategies we could pursue. We could take the movie to things like the American film market and try to sell it piecemeal in the rights that way. But our hope was always like, we're gonna hope we have a good festival run, and that we can just send it out to small distributors who work in this area. And then we got very lucky along the way that I became friends with a woman who worked in distribution with a Sundance program, who reached out to us while we were in the midst of finishing all the music stuff and was like, why is your film not out? Like, and was willing to send it to a few of her contacts. So, you know, everything in this town happens by relationships. And eventually we built one that helped us. But no, distribution was another thing. We were like, I mean, if worse comes to worse, we'll just put it on Amazon ourselves and make money anytime somebody rents it. But it was such guesswork. I mean, really, I know this makes me sound stupid, but like, it was an astonishing amount of like, well, we'll learn that by the time we need to know that, and that's when we'll do it.
Yeah, to me, that's just very scary to go in with that mindset, because you put all this time, like over a year in production, and then like you're just not 100% sure, and you're never going to be with something like this. But like, that's awesome that it worked out. I'm glad for you, because like, it's not just sitting on a shelf somewhere, and that it's going to be out on VOD May 11th of this
May 11th.
year. So
yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, like, we had been in the business doing this, getting heartbreaking almost things made for 7 years at that point. So there are no, like, we could have had a plan, but we knew enough to know that that plan could have fallen apart by the time we were done. So it seems like less of a risk in some ways than it can when you're just starting out and you'd like everything to be pre-planned, because that would be great, but it just never works that way.
Yeah. And like, after you finish the production process, and like, you still consider yourself a writer director. So like you hinted at Project 2, does that Project 2 include yourself being the director as well of that Project 2?
Yes. I mean, there are multiple projects, there are multiple scripts out there that are like, please, my representative, sell this for me. I don't want to direct it. But yeah, just this year, I've written a script that I'm very much targeting to be something that I could direct myself on a somewhat larger budget, but not necessarily a studio budget. Although if one would like to call me, I'm easy to find. So yeah, definitely, I loved directing. I had no idea I would love it. And I loved being on set, and I loved working with actors and just getting to be the middle management of the whole project. And I really want to get back out there.
Yeah, and someone that's very appealing to me, if I was an actor, to see someone that formerly an actor who was knowledgeable of production, like that's a great combination. You're a writer as well. So I would really like to work with someone like that if I was in their position. So yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine stepping on set as a director having not taken acting classes. I don't know how you communicate with your actors if you do that, because you need to speak their language.
Yeah.
So that was a huge bonus that I knew how to talk to them.
Yeah, I kind of wish I would have tried more of that. Like, I took one drama 2 class in high school just for that exact reason, to try to learn how to speak to actors. So I'm not the best, but just
it's never too late. There are acting classes out there. Get on a stage. Make yourself vulnerable before you ask other people to do it for you.
Definitely. I will definitely look into more stuff, because that's like, I directed my first exact short, like stage 2 short that I call it, like 2 weeks ago. And I think I know I can definitely improve on talking to actors, and I know someone in your position, it might come more naturally. So
well, congratulations though.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun. I had to drive 2 hours to Ohio to film it, but it was a great experience. I'm editing it right now, so coming out whenever. But talking about like festivals, why did you choose the Twin Cities Film Festival to screen your film, and also the Coven Film Festival? Why did you choose those festivals to display your work and to show those Lumineer songs?
Well, firstly, because they asked us. And you know, even the best indie film in the world is going to get 10-to-1 rejections. So they asked us. We really liked the idea of premiering it at Twin Cities, because Minneapolis, it's a bigger city than Santa Rosa and Sonoma County, but it's a very similar feel, where the nature, like there's tons of lakes and trees, and it's like a very eco-conscious city in the way it's constructed. So we thought, this is a crowd that's going to get this movie. This is a crowd that really is going to relate to how the outside helps you grow up. And we were right. The crowd, we had a packed house. The crowd was incredibly warm and enthusiastic. They loved the movie. And that was an amazing premiere. And also it was just a fun chance to go to a city I'd never been to. And Minneapolis is gorgeous. And then Coven, we really wanted a California festival. We thought it would be silly not to do one in our home state. And they're a woman-focused festival. They're a newer festival. They wanted us to be their opening night feature, which was a huge honor. And we just had a lot of fun with that. And then we also did the Vail Film Festival, which is great because they have a big emphasis on outdoor films and adventure films and stuff like that. And then the pandemic shut everything down, and that was the end of our festival run. But all three of those were great experiences. I honestly think, everybody wants to go to Sundance. Everybody wants to go to South by Southwest. But do you really want your $100,000 movie competing against something that stars Brad Pitt? Like, why would you want to put those in front of the same audience at the same time? And smaller film festivals attract locals, and they attract people that will fall in love with a small film and that want to support that kind of film. And if you're coming up as an independent filmmaker, those are the people you need. And they deserve good movies. So it was really a nice meeting of the ethic of the film with the audiences we were able to get in front of.
Yeah, so it was very calculated how you decide to send
Absolutely
to these certain festivals. And like, as a student right now, I've seen like directors and producers send their like short films to like anywhere that would take it. And like, sometimes that might not be in the most effective way of your time, and most of the time money as well, to send these.
Yeah, it's a ton of money. Yeah. We read a lot of the like best small film festival lists that come out every year, and we went specifically and read like the reviews left on sites by filmmakers who had attended those to know like, okay, these people are going to be nice to us. There's going to be good networking. We're going to meet people. Like, it's going to be a good event for us to fly across, the country for, or whatever. And it's important to do that research, I think.
Oh, definitely. Just being informed, like I see that you are about these subjects, and like, so production's almost done. Distribution is coming up May 11th, like we've been saying. What are you working on now, Mrs. Jessica? And what are we going to see next from you? And what do you hope we see next from you?
I hope you see next for me something that pays me. But I'm working on several scripts at the moment. My writing partner and I are just signing with new management, so we're excited to get some of our pilots and stuff out there because we would love to work in TV. Hopefully the movie comes out and people like it, and it's a little easier for me to move up a step and start pitching the next movie to actual studios who could give us more money than I can raise on Twitter. That's the hope, but who knows, man? Who knows? A wildfire could come, another surgery could happen. I'm just so excited to have made this one and to be putting it out there.
I cannot wait to see it on March 11th. And our final question, unless anyone in the audience wants to send in something before we go, is what advice would you give to anyone who is currently writing a script that they intend to be their first feature?
I would say that the things about yourself that make you, the things you like about yourself, about who you are, how you've grown up, those are the things. You don't need to put specifics of your life into your script, but put you into your script. Don't worry about making it Hollywoody. Put you in there, because your first project, you're selling you. You're not selling a Marvel movie. And if you do that, not only will it be a good calling card of who you are, but it will mean more to you when you make it. It will be an expression of who you are at that moment. And that's what we're here to do. Like, that's what the artist's job is.
Yeah, we want to hear your voice.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear your voice on May 11th this year. Where specifically? Just VOD or
VOD right now? We're still finalizing. Like, literally, distribution is this new thing I'm learning. Is a new process where we're going to be finalizing deals for the next month. So right now, just assume anywhere that you can rent stuff VOD, you'll be able to find it for sure.
Awesome. So what Lies West on VOD May 11th. Two M words. I hate that. But yeah, I can't wait, Mrs. Jessica Ellis, to see that when it comes out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of your future projects, everything that you have in your brain, all those television ideas. I'm sure you have a lot, so I can't wait.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back next week with Seth Porge. He's the director of Class Action Park,
It's
and we'll
great,
be
great
having him next
documentary.
week. Yeah, so thank you.